Hi everyone. How are you on this today? This is Noor Zibda, and this is the Thank God It's Fixed show. We are episode number 17, and I'm so excited to be here today. I apologize for being late. Just the day seems to go by very quickly, and that might actually be one of the tips in today's episode, which we're going to be talking about intermittent fasting. So for those of you who are observing Ramadan Mubarak, Ramadan Kareem, for those of you who are not familiar, so it's 1 month of where Muslims fast from before the sun goes up, from dawn to sunset, and it is happening mid-May to mid-June, which means that the days are long. The days are 16 hours long, and so abstain from food or drinks during the day, and we eat at night. So this is a religious way of fasting, and other religions and cultures have their own way of different ways of fasting. But what I thought about talking today about intermittent fasting, because I get this question a lot, whether with the context of Ramadan and fasting, or even outside of that with my patients who are not necessarily of Muslim faith, or they don't necessarily do it for religious reasons, but they're asking about intermittent fasting related to their health and how it can help them as well. So this is what we're going to be talking about. Intermittent fasting, what does it mean? How do you do it? What are the health benefits related to weight loss, related to fat loss? And I want to talk about a little bit about insulin sensitivity. Now, what does this all have to do with the gut? I know this is a Thank God It's Fixed show. Interestingly enough, is when you don't eat for 12 hours, then it's also like a reset for your digestive system and for your gut. And I was reading some research, which is definitely a topic that I will be talking about, that the body produces something called endotoxins or lipopolysaccharides, LPS, and it's a pretty heavy topic, but really it is essential. Like, your body produces some sort of inflammatory reaction. There's some inflammatory products, compounds after eating, and when you have leaky gut, then those can go into the bloodstream and cause some sort of toxicity and joint pain, brain fog, stomach pain, and other these issues. So while this is not the topic of today, what that relates to the gut and to the immune system and your overall health, that maybe we shouldn't be eating as many times as we were told or as we thought that we need to eat. So previously, we learned that, or in my years as a student, we learned that you have to eat 3 meals and 3 snacks, and that eating frequently is going to help you lose weight, because the approach or the theory is that if you eat frequently, then you're never too hungry, which means that you will lose weight and you will undereat. However, that doesn't seem to be a lot of evidence to support that. And in one of the ways is that when you're eating 6 times a day, then you have really 6 times a day of opportunities to overeat. And then there are all these opportunities for your body to produce insulin, which is the hormone that that is being released after you eat sugars, and that's the hormone that will make you store fat. So you eat more foods, you produce more insulin, which will prompt you to store more fat. The theory was also that if you eat frequently, there's something called the thermal effect of food, which is that you burn calories every time you eat. But it's a percentage of the total calories in the food. So if you're eating 100 calories, you're burning maybe 10 to 30% depending on the composition, but you're still storing 70. So that extra over time, day after day, is going to be a problem. So a few years ago, or maybe more, I don't have the number of that, there's more research that was coming up on intermittent fasting. And it's not a completely new thing. I mean, Monks have been doing it. Religious fasting has been there for thousands of years. So it's just nice. And I had an interview with BuzzFeed, and I shared that, and that's the clip that they put on their social media feeds. Is as a student, I was learning that we have to eat 3 to 6 times a day, but then my religion was asking me to fast, and I don't believe I am required to do something that is bad for my health or harmful for my health. So that was a little bit of conflicting for me. Like, I'm still doing it because I want to do that religious act and obligation, but I just didn't make sense of it. And so when the research came and we're coming across more of the benefits of fasting, of intermittent fasting, that was like really super cool. Now, if you're practicing fasting, then that's great. This is keep watching. If does not mean that if you're not Muslim or if you're not fasting, doesn't mean that you will not benefit from this. So I'm not promoting any sort of religious agenda in here. I'm just sharing the research on intermittent fasting, which anybody can do, anybody who's healthy. So let's just also make this distinction that when I'm talking about intermittent fasting, if you have if you're on like certain medications where you have to take a medication with food, maybe 3 times a day, maybe not the right thing for you. If you have severe migraines and headaches, if you have hypoglycemia, which means your blood sugar drops, doesn't mean you can't do it, but just don't start doing it right now. Talk to your doctor, because I don't know all your health background. If you have, kidney issues, if you have diabetes, actually intermittent fasting will really help, but also like making sure that this does not replace medical advice from your physician, because I don't want to get myself or get you in trouble as well too. So if you are just joining, just tell me where you're joining me from. I know that we have some people here. If you are fasting, tell me that you're fasting. If you're not fasting, if you're interested, just say like, I'm interested in this topic. What this episode is about intermittent fasting and how it can help with weight loss and fat loss and body composition. So I remember once I was doing some coaching for a company, and it was like one of those corporate coaching that I would meet with someone for 10-15 minutes. So I really didn't have a lot of time with them, but I used to go so often that I ended up knowing the people in the company. And then one person who had some heart issues going on, and he wanted to lose weight, and he was telling me that he was doing all the things that he could do. And I just threw it out there. I was like, have you tried intermittent fasting? And he was like, no, that's really bad for my heart. That's really bad for my health. I won't do it. So he didn't even give me a chance to tell him anything about it. And it was a quick 10-15 minutes, that's fine. So that, the day was, I coach him over a few other things, and then I didn't get to see him until a month or two later, and he came to tell me that I should have listened to you, because that word or that phrase, that question that I asked him, that stuck with him. And then he went home and he did some research, and he tried doing some research on intermittent fasting. Hi Mumtaz, thank you for joining me. From South Africa. That is so cool. That is so awesome. I hope you have a great fast tomorrow, I guess. So back to this patient or this person that he did not really give me a chance to tell him anything. A month or two later, he said, I wish I had listened. I started doing it, and I think it was his blood sugar dropped, or his weight, and he dropped a few pounds, and he was really excited. Like, he wanted to come and tell me about his result. So I think and since then, and now in my private practice, I do use that often. If you're listening and if you're one of my patients, I would probably have tried that. Or if we haven't tried it, ask me about it, and we'll go into more detail. But the benefit of, let's just talk about what is intermittent fasting. So there are multiple ways for doing intermittent fasting. So one of them is that you give yourself a break from 12 to 16 hours of no food. Sometimes I've seen 18 hours of no food, but really I don't think 12 is enough. I think you need to go more than 12 hours. So maybe 14 to 16 would be like a good range to aim for. And then you eat in the remaining hours of the day. So if you're going to fast for 16 hours, then you eat for 8 hours. Now, When does that happen? A lot of research is showing, based on circadian rhythm and because of the hormones being released, that it's actually more beneficial if you fast at night, and then you skip breakfast as opposed to skipping dinner. But you could also, actually, you can do whatever, as long as we're doing some sort of fasting at night. That is outside of Ramadan. I know for people who are fasting, this is going to be the opposite for us, but this is, throughout the year. So we're going to aim for 16 hours without eating, and we're going to limit the eating period to 8 hours. So that's one way of doing the fast. The other way of doing intermittent fasting, which is going 24 hours without eating. And so you would eat dinner, and then you will not eat anything until the day after. Now, I personally feel that this might be a little bit harder and maybe more challenging. And after 24 hours, some of the information I have on glucose metabolism and sources of energy show that after 20 hours, that you could potentially start using some of the proteins in your muscle for energy sources. So I kind of like to not go more than 16 hours. So this is based on today. Later in the future, more evidence can show us differently. So it's always important to have an open mind and just stay tuned with what new research comes back with. So why does intermittent fasting help? So when you're only eating in an 8-hour duration, then the one thing is that, number one, you're cutting on the calories that you're eating, because there aren't that many incidents or opportunities to sit down and eat. So in a normal day, when you might eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then you might snack or graze in between, when you're fasting, you're just eating between noon and 8 p.m., for example, then you're not eating the calories from the breakfast meal. So that can help. Even if you overeat a little bit lunch and dinner, that helps. Now, it's not just about the calories, and I've been saying that, and a lot of people say that. It's not about calories, and it's when you eat and how much you eat, and the composition also of what you eat. So what happens when fasting is that they found that your body is actually does not produce insulin when you don't eat. So insulin is a hormone that your body produces after you eat carbohydrate foods. And if you've ever tried to track your carbohydrates, they're in everything. Even like healthy vegetables, like they still have some carbohydrates in them. So your body is going to produce insulin. So when you produce insulin, that tells the body, don't burn the fat that we have, because food is present. So the glucose or any sources of macronutrients for energy, they're going to be burned for energy, but any excess is going to immediately get stored in fat or as fat. Now, when you're fasting, the body does not produce insulin. So, and in fact, study found that insulin sensitivity is improved, or insulin sensitivity is better when you're in a fasting state. That means that insulin, the hormone that takes blood sugar from the blood and puts it inside your cells, the cells can see that better. It works better. So if you have blood sugar issues, if you have high insulin level, or your doctor told you have insulin sensitivity or insensitivity, this is actually fasting a really good thing that you can do to help your cells utilize and see the insulin so that the blood glucose goes down. So the other thing that you think about is when you are fasting. So after 8 hours of fasting, your body will use the glycogen. So when you eat, the body will take glucose and stores it in your muscle in the form of glycogen. Think of it as a short-term storage compound. So after 8 hours of fasting, the glycogen is going to be gone. It's depleted. And then the body is forced to burn the fat that's on you, in your love handles, and your shoulders, and your torso, your legs, everywhere. The body is forced to use the fat source, because there's no source of glucose, there's no source of dietary energy, and then the glycogen is finished. And then now you start in a fasted state where you are actually burning your fat tissues. And I see that with my patients who go with intermittent fasting. They come back a week or two later, and we see that their body fat mass, because I have a body composition machine, we see that their body fat dropped. Now, when the studies also show that Intermittent fasting is preserving muscle mass and keeping, helping you lose fat mass. The other thing is when you are eating, so here's the thing, the calories are not always a calorie. When you're eating, so let's just say you're now time to break your fast, whether it's Ramadan fasting and you're breaking it at the sunset, or when you're doing the regular fasting throughout the year, when you break the fast, now the stores, the glycogen stores are empty. You don't have any source of immediate energy. So anything that you eat is going to be utilized for energy immediately as opposed to being stored in your fat tissues. So the body's priority will be, let's burn it for energy, let's restore the muscle storage form of glucose, the glycogen, and third will be whatever is in excess will go to the fat tissues. So if you're eating a reasonable meal, like nothing super fried foods or super sugary food, that meal your body is more likely to utilize it for energy as opposed to storing it as fat. So that is another benefit to fasting. Now, we also, research found that fasting helps your body produce more growth hormone. And so I know I'm getting a little bit technical with all the hormones, but this is just to show you that it's not about calories in versus calories out. Fasting is not because you eat less, it's because of the effect on your hormones that fasting is causing. So growth hormone is a hormone that is typically produced in younger, in kids and in younger people, and helps you build more muscle. And as we age, typically that's going to drop, and that's why people tend to lose muscle and gain fat as they age, even if they change nothing. So growth hormone is released at night. And if your mom ever told you that you need to sleep so you can grow up, she's right. I tell this to my kids. You need to eat well, you need to sleep well to grow your body. So, and that's because of the growth hormone. So growth hormone found that fasting actually improves growth hormone production. And so throughout the year, outside of Ramadan, when you're fasting at night, so fasting is reducing the insulin that you produce, it's making your body more sensitive to insulin, and it's helping you produce more growth hormone. So the combination of these things are going to end up with more preserving your muscle mass and losing your fat mass. And I've been able to verify that and validate that with most of my patients who tried that. Now, so these are the benefits, and the other benefits that's not as much hormonally is when you are fasting, you just get used to feeling hungry. For many people, hunger is kind of like a siren or like a fire alarm that they need to respond to. The first time they feel any signs of hunger, they feel that they have to go grab something to eat. So fasting kind of trains your body that you don't have to respond the first time, that your body can survive. It's actually designed to survive. We were not made to have access of food 24 hours. We had to the Paleolithic man, if you believe in that. They had to search for their food, and they slept when it was dark, and they had to it wasn't as accessible as in your fridge or your pantry and cabinets. So number one, you get used to feeling hungry. You don't have to respond to the hunger every time you feel it. Now, you don't want to take it overboard. So I do recommend, outside of Ramadan, the 16-hour fast for my patients. And I do recommend skipping breakfast. And I know it's so hard. It's so hard for a nutritionist to tell you, skip breakfast. If you're just joining, I gave a warning and a caution in the beginning that this is for people who are healthy. If you have to take a medication for your that needs to eat with food, or if you have hypoglycemia, which is low blood sugar, or if you have migraines and headaches or kidney disease or an issue that you really need to eat, you get really dizzy, consult with your doctor. Fasting can actually help if you have type 2 diabetes. But if you're just joining, make sure that you watch from the beginning and ask your doctor, consult with your doctor, so this does not replace the medical advice. But I do recommend when you're fasting that it's okay to skip breakfast. We've been told that breakfast is the best meal in the day. And quite honestly, I like my breakfast. I like eating it. But when I'm doing fasting days, it's actually, with the results as well that I'm getting, you can eat breakfast foods just a little bit later in the day. So you can start eating at 11 a.m. and then stop eating at 7 p.m. And that will give you the 8-hour window for eating and the 16-hour window for fasting. you train your body that it's okay to not eat all the time. From a practical perspective, when I'm doing fasting days, it's a one meal that I don't have to worry about. So a lot of people say that it's just easier and more convenient. A lot of research has, I'm not going to talk about this, but there's some research showing that fasting helps with longevity, with youth, and that could part of be related to oxidative stress from food. Some research is showing benefit to fasting for Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease. So we can, I can leave that for a different episode. I wanted really to focus today on weight loss and fat loss. Hi, Sabrina. Thank you for joining. So one more thing I had. So it's okay to be hungry. Now, if you have any questions, this episode is about intermittent fasting. If you have any questions on how to do it, things that cross your mind, I decided to talk about intermittent fasting because today is the first day of Ramadan, which is a religious form of fasting. So if you're observing that, definitely, that's for one purpose. But if you're not interested in it for religious reasons, take advantage of this practice, and you can use that for your own health benefits. And there's a lot of research, even at NIH, and a few books are on intermittent fasting as well. So a few questions: what can I eat or drink? What can I eat or drink when I'm fasting? You can drink water. If you want to do intermittent fasting, you can drink black coffee and black tea. So that could be something that you can have in the beginning of the day. Now, a couple of things that people often ask: can I put collagen, which is a protein powder that made from beef collagen or other types of collagen, in my coffee? I usually recommend collagen for fasting. I'm not sure, because when you introduce protein, it might actually change the way your body's processing and metabolizing food. So you might get you out of that fasted state. So I say don't do it. And then there is, you may have seen the bulletproof coffee, and which is adding fats to your coffee. I think potentially you could add any sort of fat, so like heavy cream. Kind of crazy for me to recommend that, but you can add like the bulletproof, which is the butter, to the coffee. That would help because it's purely fat, and after 12 hours of fasting, your body now is burning your fat stores for energy. So if you only introduce fats, then that's possible that the body will continue to burn fat as opposed to switching to burning glucose, which is what happens if you have sugar or milk or a muffin or even a date or anything with your coffee. So the question, so these are the common questions with fasting. Now, for religious fasting, for Muslims, we're not drinking water or coffee, so that's a completely different scenario in there. So I had someone ask, I would like to lose weight this Ramadan. So weight loss in Ramadan is really possible because we're not, we had to stop eating today at 4:28, and we won't get to break the fast until 8:20 or 8:18. So that's about 16 hours of fasting. So for everyone who's doing a 16-hour fast, you could lose weight. It's very, very possible and very likely, but you really have to be careful what you're eating at night. So if you overcompensate and you have a lot of fried foods and sweets and desserts and juices and drinks, you're not going to lose weight. So you really have to make sensible choices. The fun or the beauty or the benefit of fasting is, or intermittent fasting, that you don't have to be as strict about the portion. So if you're eating throughout the day, you kind of, the calorie amount really is a big difference. But now when we're fasting, we're more adjusting the timing and how that affects your metabolism and your hormones. And so you have a little bit of leeway. So you could have a small piece of dessert here and there, or maybe you don't have to count your calories and measure your food, but it has to still be reasonable. So that's one thing that you really have to pay attention to. So have a balanced meal, have some protein, have some vegetables, definitely vegetables, healthy carbohydrates if you choose to do carbohydrates, and as well healthy fats. So using some olive oil in a salad dressing or some avocado, as well on the side, or maybe if you like to eat hummus with some tahini sauce, so that has some healthy fats in it and some olive oil. So these are all things that are healthy that can be incorporated when you break the fast. So I do have a question about fasting specifically for Ramadan. I'm going to answer that. Sabrina, I'm going to answer that for you separately. But if you have any questions specifically about intermittent fasting related to weight loss, then definitely ask that question. So Zena has a question: does fasting help with type 1 diabetes? There are a lot of studies on diabetes and how you can manage your medications when you so that you're able to fast. So with type 1 diabetes, your body is not producing insulin. So if you're I think you can. I think the best, because you're probably on medication, is to consult with your doctor to adjust your insulin dose. So if you're on an insulin dose that is long lasting, like the one that you take in the morning, you don't want the insulin to be working throughout the day when you're actually not putting any food in your mouth. And so that could lead to hypoglycemia, because the way they dose the medication is that it's throughout the day. You're definitely not going to be taking your insulin at meals, so that's not the problem. So it can help. There are a lot of research about it, but you definitely want to talk with your doctor so that they can adjust your medications doses with you. And when you break your fast, you have to make sure that you are not eating high carbohydrates and simple carbohydrates and sugary carbohydrates. Make sure that you're eating balanced meals with a lot of fiber from vegetables, and balance them with proteins and healthy fats as well too. So Zena, if you have more questions, you can private message me, and I can try to see if I can help you separately as well too. So these were it, and if you just joined, this episode was on intermittent fasting, episode number 17 with Thank God It's Fixed show, inspired by Ramadan starting this week, or today for some people, tomorrow for other people in some countries. It was about general intermittent fasting, how it can help you. So for those of you who are doing the religious fast, you can use these, the research, the benefits and the hormonal changes for fasting, so you can lose weight, so you can improve, so you can lose fat, so you can improve even your cholesterol. You can see that change, and you can see your insulin and blood sugar sensitivity also improve. So that was it for today. This is Noor Zibde. I'm functional dietitian and nutritionist. Thank you for joining me, and I will come back and answer any questions that you have. Have a great day. Ramadan Mubarak. Bye bye.